Okay, so we're going to look at government price controls, right? So we're going to say what happens when a government intervenes to fix the price so you're not at your equilibrium quantity and price, right? You're not at P star or Q star, right? So let's look at the situation over here where we've got your linear demand curve. Oh boy, that's pretty bad. Let me just draw that again. Here, linear demand curve and your linear supply curve, right? So then you have your market equilibrium. You all know what this is. Q star and P star. Okay, then the question is, what happens if the government decides to fix the price such that the price is lower than the equilibrium price, right? So the government fixes the price. Okay, the lecture slide calls it the maximum price. Okay, you can call this also the ceiling price. Ceiling price. Right? We call it the ceiling price because the price can go up until it hits the ceiling and then it is stuck. Right? So that's what we mean by ceiling price. Okay, so the ceiling price, the lecture slide and the textbook say maximum price. Right? Well, if you're going to have this situation, then you're going to end up in a disequilibrium. You're going to end up in a disequilibrium because when the price is low, lots of people want to buy the product, right? So you will have the situation where quantity demanded will be here, but quantity supplied will be over here. At a low price, sellers don't want to sell a lot, but buyers want to buy a lot. So you're going to end up with a shortage. You're going to end up with a shortage because quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. So you're going to end up with a shortage, right? Or an excess demand. So some textbooks will talk about excess demand, and that will be equal to this area over here. Sorry, my handwriting is shocking. Shortage. Okay, I try to write as well as I can, but I was born left-handed and my mother beat the shit out of me till I changed to my right hand. So I can't really write very well. Okay, shortage. So that's the situation that was given in the lecture slide, which I couldn't cover because of the fire alarm. You can also have the situation that is the opposite, where you have a price floor, right? And that would be very common in agriculture. So you say, where is this one common? If I come back to this, where is this price common? In many developing countries, governments will fix the price of things which are very important that people can't afford to pay for, like electricity or water. Obviously, that then leads to shortages, but that's a different issue. That's an issue for another day. Okay, the textbook, if you have the textbook, it talks about rationing, and I didn't include that in this lecture slide, so it's not accessible, but you can read up on it if you have the textbook. Okay, so that's the situation where you have a price ceiling or the maximum price. Okay, you can have the opposite scenario, right? So if I go to, if we come back to this slide that was in the lecture slide, right? And then in the very last slide of lecture 1, topic 1, it spoke about the shortage in natural gas, and it gave you an equation and it asked you to see and solve for the equation. So we can do that, right? So if I move this, oops, if I move this over here, then what did we have? We had our supply equation. Our supply equation, which was Q equals 15.9 plus 0.72, oops, sorry, 0.72 price of gasoline. That's a G over here, price of gasoline, plus 0.05 price of crude oil, PO. Right, this is a plus crude oil. Plus, right? So that's G over there. Come on, let me try and write that again. Letter G. I'm doing my best with this software over here. And then your demand equation, quantity is equal to 0.02 minus, remember it has to be a minus because it's the demand equation, 1.8 PG plus the crude oil, 0.69 PO. Okay, so what we can do is we can solve for the supply equation and we can solve for the demand equation, and we will see that there's an excess demand, right? So what do we see with the supply equation? Well, we go to the supply equation and you just fill in the values, because we are told that PG, the price of gasoline, is $3 and the price of oil, crude oil, is $50. Is that right? Yes, $50. Okay, so we can solve for that, right? We can go to the supply equation. And Q will be equal to 15.9 minus 0.72 times 3. Sorry, not minus, plus 0.05, 50. Then you just solve for that. I got 15.9, my calculator, 2.16 plus 2.5, 20.56. Right? That's the quantity supplied. Right? Quantity supplied, 20.56. And then you can go for the demand one. 0.02 minus 1.8 times 3 plus 0.69 times 50. What did I get? 0.02 minus 5.4 plus 34.5, and I got 29.12. 29.12 quantity demanded, right? So this was an example of a shortage where the government had fixed the price of gas to be less than the equilibrium price. So you can see that the quantity demanded is higher than the quantity supplied. So you're going to be in a situation where you're going to suffer from a shortage or excess demand. Right? It's going to be equal to QD minus QS. 29.12 minus 20.56, and I worked that out to be 8.56 units. Okay, so that was the last lecture slide. If I go now to another slide, I open up another slide, we can have the opposite scenario. So again, I will draw up the linear demand curve and the linear supply curve. And again, we have our equilibrium. Now, what happens if the government fixes the price above this? Okay, we call this the price floor, or as the textbook is likely to call it, the minimum price. The price floor means the price can be higher than this, but it will eventually hit the floor, and it cannot go lower than this. That's why it's called a price floor. A price floor. Well, in this situation, the price is higher than the equilibrium price. So as you can imagine, sellers want to sell a lot, QS. But buyers don't want to buy a lot, QD. So we have the situation where quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. So you have a surplus. You have excess of the product, also known as excess supply. Excess supply, and it will be equal to this area over here, your surplus. Okay, and this is quite common in the Western countries with regards to fixing the price of agricultural products to support the farming industry, right? Highly political issue, right? So early on in the lecture, we showed you how from a position of disequilibrium, you go into equilibrium, but here you can't. With the price floor and the price ceiling, it is stuck here, and this leads to all sorts of inefficiencies. Okay, so from an economics point of view, it's not good, but we are not governed by economics alone. Right? We're not governed by economics alone. There are political consideration, welfare considerations, issues of fairness and equity, and you got to take all of those things into account. Okay, all of those things into account.